Hi everyone, this is Vanessa Vasquez, your Lima City tour guide. In today's video, we will discuss the fascinating history of the immigrations to Peru. Of course, there were many different groups that immigrated to Peru during the course of our history since the conquest of this territory by the Spanish in the year 1532. But we're going to focus in four groups that are, in my opinion, the most important, also culturally the most meaningful, the most influential. So, well, we will not delay more the beginning of this video. Let's start. Peru's history has been marked by immigrations. Well, these immigrations are now the reason why our cuisine is so famous, and around the world you're going to find in the biggest cities and the most populated cities a Peruvian restaurant. But did you know that Peru is home of the largest Chinese community in South America and also the second largest Japanese community in South America? Well, you will learn why in this video. We have to start in order. And if we go back to the colonial period or viceroyal period also, we will understand that Peru was also a recipient of lots of different human groups that came from different parts of the world. Well, some of them came because they wished to make the Americas in this territory, and some of them were forced to come. They had no decision in this movement that they were enforced to. So the first group I will be including in today's short talk is the African group, the Black immigration. And this immigration started as early as the arrival of the conquistadors to this territory. We know that millions of slaves brought from Central Africa in particular were introduced into the Americas in different periods of the history of this continent. In Peru, well, the African immigration was important, numerous also, and is one of the oldest immigrations. So we had over 400 years of blend of cultures. We know that about 15 million African people were brought to the Americas. Most of the concentration of slavery was in the territories of nowadays Brazil, with approximately 5 million Africans brought as slaves into that territory. Also, another 5 million were brought into the Caribbean area, and also another large group, 5 million approximately, were brought to the continent. Peru is one of the territories where the smallest group of slaves were brought to, and that is because of our location. We are very, very distant to the Atlantic. We are in the Pacific side, so bringing slaves to Peru demanded a large trip, a long trip that consisted in sailing the Atlantic, disembarking slaves in the coast of Colombia or in Panama, taking them walking to the other side of Panama across the isthmus, and well, finally being taken again into another ships to be finally brought to Lima, to the port of Callao, from where they were taken to different haciendas. Of course, there were other many different ports in the coast of the Pacific. Also, some of them even in Chile, in the territories of nowadays Chile. But Lima, our city, my city, received a big amount of slaves. According to their blend with the European culture, and also how much they understood the Western ways, language, and traditions, African men, slaves, were classified for more suiting for agricultural work or more suiting for domestic work. For example, the bozales, or the ones born in Africa, were supposed to be better for the work in plantations. And the ones that were born in America, like the criollos, were better suiting for the domestic works. So this segregation also permitted cities like Lima that were already a very, very blend and very mixed and had a lot of different influences from different parts of the world to have a big Afro-descendant community. The Spanish allowed the mixing of cultures quite early. This was basically something beneficial on their side. When the Spanish came, they already found a nobility, an Incan or indigenous nobility ruling the territory, but also not just Incan nobility, also other ethnic groups that were ruling different parts of the territory. Some of them were allies to the Incas and some of them were enemies of them. So, according to their situation and how helpful they were with the Spanish, they kept their status as ruling families or families with benefits. So, to basically create a alliance between the Spanish and them, there were unions, noble unions that happened at some point, marriages of Spanish noblemen and Incan noble women. Is really part of the beginning of the build of this Peruvian society in that colonial times. But also, this was moved or was also transported to the reality of the lower classes. So also the lower classes experience this mixing, this blend. And that's how, for example, from being three ethnic groups initially in Peru, sort of like coexisting, the indigenous, the Spanish, and also the African, we have soon after these subgroups emerging, like, for example, the mestizos, the mulattos, and the zambos. Mestizos were the children of the Spanish and indigenous, mulattos, the children of the Spanish and the black, and zambos, the children of the indigenous and the black. So these blends continue on, and different subgroups appear until a point in which it was very, very difficult to follow track of all of these different castes. The first slave market of Lima was located outside the Church of the Franciscans. So it was something accepted like socially, and so much that, well, slavery continued existing until the 19th century. The abolishing of the slavery happened in the year 1854, and that was the time when this process of sort of like reinsertion into society for some of these people started. We know that also until the beginnings of the 20th century, there still were haciendas with slaves. The next important immigration is the Italian. The Italian immigration to Peru really started before the independence in the colonial times. Most people associate the immigration of Italians, French, English, Germans, and many other people from Europe to the post-independence period. But the Italian community arrived early in our history, and of course with the permission of the kings of Spain. We had usually priests coming in the colonial times, in the viceroyal period, and most of these priests produce art. The main immigration started after the independence from Spain, and it is related with the boom of the guano. The guano boom was the reason of the immigration of many, many men to Peru. A very short, let's say, boom, a short period of our history connected with the guano, and also an explosion of wealth, a rapid ascent of the country in terms of its economy. Guano, the poop of seabirds, is an excellent fertilizer. It still is in use, by the way. So many people came to Peru looking for opportunities, making businesses also, and many got very, very wealthy. So Italians, many Italians came to Peru in that period. They were not just directly connected with the guano boom, but they also had the opportunity of flourish because people had money in that time in the country. So many were related with, for example, the production of wine, and they opened different shops, pulperias, which are like restaurants, or fondas as well, like restaurants, bars, and so on. So they became very, very wealthy in the period, and it is very, very clear that their influence also is related with the cuisine. We have some dishes that are influenced by the Italian influence. And we also had very important Italian visitors in our history. For example, Giuseppe Garibaldi, the father of Italy, a revolutionary man who was the person who unified Italy. Before him, Italy was conformed by different kingdoms and, let's say, independent states. So the biggest unifier of Italy was also here in Lima. And we have also Antonio Raimondi, a great wise man who traveled Peru, who helped us identify different endemic species of the country. And well, he also embraced, loved this nation as his own. In the census of Lima of 1858, well, we know the city had about 95,000 inhabitants. Lima was very, very little back then, but 5,000 of them were Italians. And also, recent investigation says that approximately 50,000 Italian immigrants arrived to Peru in the 19th century. Well, now we have a large Italo-Peruvian community, which is very proud of both ancestries and traditions. And now the Chinese immigration to Peru, which is one of the largest of our history. And we can compare the Chinese immigration in numbers to the African forced immigration to Peru, because both of them give us a number of approximately 100,000 immigrants, 100,000 Africans, 100,000 Chinese. But what is amazing is that the Chinese immigration that brought about 100,000 of them to Peru will happen in a very short period of time, in a little bit more than 30 years. So this immigration was massive, and took also these people to the plantation fields of the coast of Peru. Most of this concentration of Chinese was located in the coast of the country in different haciendas. They were put to work in plantations of sugarcane, cotton, in building railroads, for example, and also in the harvesting of guano, the poop of seabirds. They were named coolies. Coolie is actually a word that comes from Bengali, and it refers to laborer or worker. So coolies, or coolies as we call them here in Peru, work in an intense way, and they were not treated well. They were also treated as slaves, or in a semi-slavery, let's say, situation, in which they were not paid according to what they were offered originally, and also were mistreated terribly. Even many of them died also from starvation or malnourishment, and well, lots of diseases that they were exposed to. So this community is, let's say, characterized for being male, predominantly male immigration, basically from Guangdong or Canton. So they were Cantonese, and that's why the influence we have in this period of our history and in our cuisine is mainly Cantonese influence, Cantonese food, for example. And well, this big group of people in most of the cases was not able to return home. So they stay here, they married Peruvians, and well, they form beautiful families, which are really the origin of well, this fusion, this mixed culture we have. This community is named Tusan. Tusan refers to the blend between Chinese and Peruvians. You have to visit a chifa if you ever come to Peru to understand how important and how rooted also the Chinese influence is in this country. And last but not least, we have the Japanese immigration to Peru. Well, Japan and Peru have some things in common. For example, the fact that agriculture is a element that has distinguished both nations, and also the worshipping of the sun. The sun is a very important element for the Japanese culture, and all the children of the Incas here in Peru. So Peruvians consider Japanese people an example of, let's say, commitment and hard work, and that's why also they have a very special place in our history and also in our society. So much that at some point in our history we had a Japanese president. Well, he was born in Peru, but his parents were Japanese, first generation Japanese. So they were born in Japan and came here to Peru to make a living. Alberto Fujimori. So Fujimori and many other men and women that are Nikkei, or we call them Nikkei to the Peruvian Japanese, let's say, community, are proud also of both traditions they have. So the Japanese immigration, differently to the Chinese immigration, started basically at the end of the 19th century. The Chinese immigration started in the year 1849 and the Japanese immigration in 1899. So at the end of the 19th century, the first ship from Japan bringing about 700 Japanese men to Peru to work in the plantations, to start a new life here, well, was also the beginning of this mass immigration. This community also is famous because nowadays, for example, we have this amazing fusion called Nikkei food, and the Nikkei food representing both traditions is now everywhere around the world. Why the Japanese community remain more isolated, or like they create a permaculture in the city for much longer than the Chinese. And the difference is that the Japanese immigration was mainly a family immigration, an immigration of couples. So this, let's say, situation of being families and not just individuals permitted the community to keep their traditions, keep their food intact for longer. The use of Japanese in the family also for longer. In the case of the Chinese immigration, there were men who were marrying Peruvians, and in a way also they had to give up their language, at least within the family circle or inner circle, because well, the spouses, they couldn't understand the language. So basically the integration of the Japanese community in our society took a little bit longer. Well, I hope you found this video informative to understand a little bit better about the different influences in the Peruvian culture, in the Peruvian traditions, in the Peruvian food as well. Thank you so much for watching this video until the end. If you want access to a longer version of this video, the video I have prepared for this topic is 1 hour and a half long, so it has lots of information and images to share. You can access to it in the link I'm leaving here in this description of this video. You can access also by a small donation, and you can also access by another small donation to my my next history lecture that is going to be very soon, mid this month of September. I will be doing an event about the expulsion of the Jesuits from the Americas. So this is a very interesting topic. I am already preparing the material, so you can access to this live event or get also a recording of this event, which is going to be also quite long in duration. Purchasing that access here in the same link I am leaving in the description of this video. So well, thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in the next video, and have a great day. Take care and bye bye. Ciao.